Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds to allow people to sign on, and then we will begin in a couple of seconds, inshallah. Okay, let's get started. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our wellness webinar. I'm your host, Aruj. And before we begin, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about Tarbiyah Institute's new online platform, Tarbiyah Live. Tarbiyah Live has been our program since all this quarantine has started. We've had a lot of new programs, including our Quran Teen, which is like a 15-minute Quran recitation and khatira. We've had our Friday spiritual talks, the Siras online, Sunnah session online. And now with Ramadan around the corner, we have plenty of new Ramadan programs available for you all. Starting tomorrow night, we have our first Ramadan Khatira at 9 p.m. Please do not miss that. And for all other programs, you can either check out our Facebook or our Instagram. We also have our Ramadan publication ebook available for download on our website at live.tarbiyah.org. And today I have with us Brother Sajad Shakoor. Brother Sajad has spent over 20 years of his life in prison. During those years, he has worked hard to use that time to his advantage, furthering his education. He is now a PhD holder and is the owner of 15 Falafel Corner locations, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Sajad. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good, mashallah. Wa alaikum assalam.
So can you tell us a little bit about your life story?
Yeah, basically, I was really young when I went to prison. I was still in high school. I was in the 12th grade, and I was involved with gangs and guns and just a lot of dumb stuff, and went to prison at a very young age. And for the next 21 years, I was in prison. I had a life sentence. I had 25 to life, and really had no hopes of ever getting out of prison. And it wasn't till I started pursuing my education while I was inside. The result of that education was I started a group to help prisoners. And Stanford University finds out about this group. And next thing you know, they put up a proposition to change the law, the three strikes law, that put me away. And basically, the three strikes law was if you had two previous violent felonies and you committed a third one, they would give you life in prison.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and that's even at a young age, I amassed a bunch of violent felonies. So the three strikes law was changed, and in 2013, I was eligible for parole. And but for that, I would have spent the rest of my life in prison.
Oh,
So
subhanallah.
yeah, when I got out, I wanted to pursue my education. I wanted to finish my education. I had a passion for it, and so I was staying in. I'm originally from Sacramento, but I moved to Fremont and got a job over there at Falafel Corner, at the original Falafel Corner in
Wow.
Fremont. And so I was working there and going to school, and for the next 3 years, basically. While I was finishing up my education, stayed there and went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, after my education was finished, I came back to Sacramento and uh, opened up my own fluff corner. I just didn't think it was going to blossom into 15, but alhamdulillah, it did.
Alhamdulillah, what a blessing.
Alhamdulillah.
So at what point did you realize that you needed to change your behavior and do something different while you were in prison?
You know, this is a tough question. I mean, for the majority of my formative years and up until well into my 20s, I was involved in that lifestyle, in that gang lifestyle. It was something I was with for a very long time, something I did a lot of work for. And by work, I mean committed a lot of felonies and did a lot of violence for that. Um, it came a point and took a life sentence for that lifestyle, 25 to life in prison, because I thought that's what gangsters did. When you wanted to be a tough guy, you had to go to prison. That was part of being a tough guy. So while I was in prison, this was a life that I chose. This was a life that I wanted to live. and it
Right.
was an identity that I chose. And while I was in prison, I was faced, after many, many years of still, living in this lifestyle, I was faced with a decision to either choose that or choose Islam. And at that moment, it was probably the most uh, pivotal moment in my life where I willingly walked away from this life that I not only chose, but that I had taken a life sentence in prison for. I walked away from that and chose Islam. And alhamdulillah, best decision I ever made in my life. Because once I did that, I was still in the prison. I mean, it's not like they sent me to a better prison
Hmm.
or to a protective custody prison. I stayed right there with everyone, with all those gangsters and with all those killers. And it was a tough situation because I walked away from my family. Those guys were my family in the sense that your gang is your family.
Right.
And in prison, your gang is not only your family, but it's your protection too. So when you walk away from that, you leave yourself exposed. And but I did. I walked away from that, and that was the beginning of my change. After that point, the rest of the more than a decade that I spent in prison, it was a decade full of reading and edifying myself and improving myself spiritually and mentally. So that was the catalyst for the change. And that led me to finally meet a Muslim chaplain who used to come to the prison. His name was Michael Salam. And Michael Salam basically took me under his wing and said, you know what, you need to really do something with your life. You're a smart guy, educate yourself. And I started getting involved in education, and eventually became only the second person ever in the history of San Quentin to get a bachelor's degree from Ohio University.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a really good video clip online where I'm sitting in front of the Senate with my clock, and I have to mention this: the way I earned the money for college, because they don't pay prisoners to go to college. You have to earn the money. Somebody has to pay for your college education in prison. So I did it myself by making clocks that I would sell to prison guards. And that's how I paid for my education. There's a really good clip of it online where I'm sitting in front of the Senate and I have this clock in front of me. And we were trying to pass this bill to bring prison education funding. And I brought in the clock and they actually passed the bill because of that.
Wow. SubhanAllah. I mean, your story is so inspirational, honestly. When I was talking to you before, I've heard bits and pieces of it, and I honestly wish we could go a little bit longer just so we could hear more of it. But I know the focus of our webinar today is, coping and strategies on how to structure our day. So I want to talk about that a little bit. You had mentioned earlier that you were the longest time that you were in solitary confinement, meaning like a real lockdown, was about 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Um, I mean, that's a really long time. We've been in this for like what, a month now, and we're having like anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and we
Everyone is
can't handle this.
and imagine 2 years.
Yeah, so,
So
so how did you keep the motivation during that lockdown, knowing you still had, oh my God, 600 days, oh my God, 300 days,
right.
like,
So let me explain a little bit about what the lockdowns in prison look like. So when you go on lockdown in prison, you're in your cell for 24 hours a day. It's not like 23 hours in and 1 hour out. No, it's 24 hours you're in your cell. So if when the lockdown was 2 years long, that means that for those 2 years, we actually never set foot outside the cell. We showered in the cell, and it's just you and your cellmate. So you get to know more about your cellmate than you want to know about any human being. Um, so it's just you and your cellmate. You eat in there, you shower in there. There's a toilet in there. Everything is done inside the cell. So anyway, after 2 years, um, if you don't regiment yourself correctly, you can either go crazy in there
mhm,
or you can come out there sane. And the only way to come out of a situation like that with your sanity intact is to have a regimen and stick to that regimen. So yeah, my 2 years. I have to say this because I find this really amusing. when I got out, I went out to the yard. We're out there running. We hadn't seen the sun in 2 years because we didn't have windows in our
Right.
street. So after 2 years, we get out. Now we're out there running around and playing ball and everything. And I come back to the cell and I'm showering and the water's burning me up. And I'm asking my son, hey, what does it do with the water? Did it put some acid in the water or something? Because it's burning up my skin. And he's like, no, man, you're sunburned. I'm like, what are you talking about, son? What the hell is sunburn? He's like, when you turn, you're all pink. And I'm like, bro, I'm from Pakistan. We don't get sunburned. We don't turn pink. What are you talking about? Turns out I had lost all my color.
Oh my goodness.
I had lost all my skin color. So when I went out after 2 years of no sunlight, I go out there and, I got sunburned and came back. And that was about a week of just agonizing pain and scratching. And, I'm asking for lotion and the guards are looking at me, what the hell's wrong with you? What do you need lotion for? I'm sunburned. And it was just a crazy thing. So anyway, that lockdown was the longest. I had done 6 months and 7 months and 5 months, but those were like vacations, and this was the long one. That was the
Yeah.
long.
So you had talked about, at some point when you decided to kind of shift the way you were living your life, you started becoming a little bit more spiritual, started going to Jama prayer, and then eventually you were fully on the path. You were praying all of your prayers. You were doing your adhkar. You were, like doing the right thing.
Right.
While you were there, how did you keep your spirituality up, even though you were in lockdown? I mean, with Ramadan coming up right now, people are panicking because we usually, utilize the masajid and our community to help us with boosting our spirituality and getting that recharge whenever we go to the masjid. And we don't have that now. I mean, you had to do it for so long completely on your own. Can you talk about
Yeah,
how you did that?
completely. Yeah, completely on my own. There was no. When you're on lockdown, the chaplains can't come see you. You can't talk to your family. Your family can't come see you. You can't call your family. There's nothing. You can write them, but there's no physical contact, no telephones, nothing.
Right.
And for the youngsters out there listening, just imagine 2 years without Facebook or Instagram. I mean, that's gonna. But we didn't have anything, right? So, but the thing, the thing that you have to do um, in that environment is you have to understand that there are going to be spiritual valleys and spiritual peaks. And when you're in that situation, you're in a spiritual valley. You're at the bottom of your spiritual meter. And at that time, the only thing you can do, first of all, don't dwell on it. Do not, it's like when you're climbing a building or something like that, or climbing a mountain, say, don't look down. Say
Right.
you're in the spiritual valley, don't dwell on it. That you're at the bottom, you're in despair, despondency. Don't think about that. At that moment, that's when you start praying more. That's when you start reading more Quran. That's when you start doing more zikr. And one thing that worked for me, and different remedies work for different people. Different spiritual remedies work for different people. One that worked for me in that environment was not just reading the Quran, whereas before I would read it in Arabic and kind of glance at the translation. And during that time, I chose the surahs that were my favorites, that I like reading more than others. And I would start reading the translations on that and then start reading the commentary on that. And that commentary in conjunction with the translation, it just brought the Quran into, it just made it manifest in my life a lot more. And I could relate to, especially the surahs that dealt with the stories of the prophets, towards
Hmm.
the middle or the back of the Quran. And those stories, as you're reading about the prophets and what they went through, and then you're reading the commentary on that, and you're reading the hadiths that were associated with that, right? It just opened up the Quran in ways that I hadn't really imagined before, and it made my predicament that I was in seem like a cakewalk. I'm like, man, compared to what the prophets went through, this is nothing.
For sure.
I got thrown in solitary confinement. Ibrahim alayhi salam got thrown in the fire. So, it made my stuff look like nothing. And eventually, and we have to understand that eventually you come out of that valley and you start going back up towards the peak. And things do get easier. This is just the system of Allah. It's the way it's designed. So my advice to people that are in that spiritual valley is that don't get despondent, don't get hopeless, don't despair. Just focus more on the Quran, focus more on your salah, and eventually you will come out of
So one thing that you had also told me about earlier was that during the day you had a very, very specific, detailed, structured day.
it. Yes.
You did everything at a specific time, and this all helped you kind of cope with being in a lockdown and organize your day and not kind of feel despair of being in there for so long. So, can you tell us about your daily schedule? How did you structure it?
Right. So, first of all, that schedule, that regimen came from the OG guys that, were older members of our gang that kind of schooled us on how to do time. And it's really important. They understood that your brain has to be active at a certain level so you don't go crazy.
Mhm.
And the main reasoning behind that was they wanted soldiers that could be sane and productive. So they gave us a regimen, and the regimen worked in every lockdown. I didn't go through a single lockdown in which this regimen did not work. And man, if you're talking about empirical data after 2 decades, I think I'm a resident expert on lockdowns and how to do lockdowns. So, and the regimen was the same every time. And basically, here's the regimen: you wake up in the morning, you wake up early in the morning, make your prayer. And this was our method every single day during lockdown. Wake up in the morning, make your prayer. The first thing you do is set everything in your cell. This is a very small cell. It's a 5 foot by 8 foot cell. So you pick up everything, you put it to the side, you roll up your mattress and everything, you put it to the side, and then you exercise. So you purposely do your exercise in longer increments than you normally would. Why? Because the goal is to trick your brain. The goal is to trick your brain into thinking that even though this is a very long lockdown, that you don't have enough time in the day. And I'll go through the steps to show you how we actually tricked our brain into thinking that at the end of the day, we just don't have enough time. I gotta wait till tomorrow to finish this up. So in doing that, we would do our exercise longer, maybe an hour or an hour and a half, whereas normally you would only do maybe 30 minutes. So, and that exercise, we would push ourselves to do the sets and the reps in the manner in which you would you leave a little at the table. You'd always need to come back the next day and finish it off.
Okay.
So the first thing was the exercise. The exercise was very important, not only physically but also mentally. Exercise has a huge impact on how we think, how we react.
Right.
So we would do our exercise. After the exercise, we would take turns and clean the cell. Purposely taking time instead of just doing a quick sweep inside the cell, we would purposely be very, very, I mean, we're talking about OCD, exponential OCD type of cleaning, right? Why? Because we want to drag it out a little bit.
Right.
So those cells used to be on lockdown, those cells used to be so clean. You could eat off the floor in those cells on lockdown days. So anyway, you drag out the cleaning process. After cleaning, you take turns in the cell, you do your shower, and then afterwards you eat. By then breakfast has already come. They've already served the breakfast in the tray, but you put that to the side because you're doing your cleaning or exercise. Then you eat. After you eat your breakfast, um, depending on your routine, you could either take a little nap or now at this point you actually start doing your reading. And some guys would, depending on the rotation, some guys would take their nap at this time, and other
Mhm.
guys would be up and doing their reading. And because we had to rotate, when you're in this kind of environment, everyone can't sleep, because they accidentally open the doors of your rival gang members, and things can get really crazy. So you
Oh my
can't
gosh.
always, not everyone can sleep. Somebody has to stay awake and sound the alarm in case. your rivals accidentally get open. So they actually made videos about this. They were called gladiator fights. So if you guys are close to Google, type that in, and you'll see a whole bunch of videos on that. Anyway, so one group would sleep, the other group would usually stay up. But anyway, after the exercise, after eating, you would either sleep or you would read. And you would allot yourself an hour or two to do your reading, right? And by reading, I'm not talking about doing some um, leisure reading. This was reading that was purposeful reading. Like you would either read a psychology book, which I don't know why psychology is very popular in prisons, but every prison you go to, psychology is like the number one topic everyone wants to read about. So it was purposeful reading, whether it was psychology, literature, whatever. This was the time that guys would actually read. After reading, lunch would come and you would eat your lunch. After lunch, you would either take the nap or you would stay up and do your writing. And this was the time when we wrote our letters. So we had about 2 hours to write all our letters. Interesting thing about the letters, I could probably pen a letter in 10, 15 minutes, right? And we were taught to write everybody. Just write your cousins, uncles, friends, whoever, because it's not actually. Yeah, you want them to write back and everything, but really is you're tricking your brain into keeping yourself active, right? That's the whole goal here. So you allot about 2 hours of time to writing this letter, and you purposely write really slow and really flowing letters and calligraphy, right? And not just to impress your the person that you're writing, but also to purposely take time and draw this letter,
Right.
hoping that before the 2 hours is up, that your letter didn't even finish. So you have to finish it tomorrow. So it's like a task that was undone, and it's in the back of your mind that, man, I got to finish this thing tomorrow. I ran out of time today. Then dinner comes. After dinner, that's when you actually uh, relax. You unfold your mattress. Up until this time, your mattress is actually all folded up. You're not allowed to lay down on your bunk yet.
Oh,
Up until
wow.
that point. Yeah, yeah, it was to trick your brain because you're actually working. So up until then, your mattress is all folded up. After dinner, that's when you're allowed to unfold your mattress and turn on your TV. Everyone had a TV in the cell, so that's when you turn on your TV, and this was your R&R time. This was after dinner, which is 6 or 7 o'clock, depending on the prison. You could actually relax and watch your favorite program, and you're not allowed to write or do anything like that during your R&R time, right? Because you don't want to confuse the two times. That's one. The second thing is you don't want to finish that task ahead of time. Very important. You want to leave that task undone for the next day. So around 9 o'clock, we might have gotten 3 hours or 4 hours of R&R and TV watching. Around 9 o'clock, that's when lights are out, and that's when it's time to go to sleep. And then the next morning, early in the morning, everything starts all over again in the same manner. And the goal behind all of this was one, you keep yourself occupied at all times, you keep your brain occupied at all times.
Hmm.
And you're tricking your brain into thinking that, man, I don't have enough time in the day to finish my tasks. So your brain, it never factors in that, man, I got 2 years to do. What am I going to do with 2 years? What am I going to do? If the brain always thinks that man, I don't have enough time in the day to do what I need to do. And before you know it, your 2 years are up. And that's how we passed away our time. Now, had we just slumbered and just been sitting around moping and reading books, I think those 2 years would have felt like 20. But
Yeah,
the
right.
goal is keep yourself active, set a regimen, and trick your brain into thinking that you don't have enough time in the day for your tasks. That's the goal.
So what tips can you give us on coping in light of the stay home order? We can't leave. How can people cope with this, along with the structuring of the day, but the psychology behind it? I know, you said that it's really, really popular in prisons, and I'm sure you read up a lot about psychology as well.
Yeah. So the first thing out here, the dynamics are that you have families, and Uh, you have women and children. And out here, you take the same regimen and you kind of tweak it a little bit. So in the morning, when you wake up for Fajr, you wake up the kids, get them to make their prayer, and at that time, that's the best time to do some kind of dhikr or read a little bit of Quran at that time. Just something very light, especially for the kids. And if you're working at home, you don't have to come out like I have to come out to work every day. But if you're working at home, you don't have to come out to work. I would take that opportunity to do the salat, do the dhikr, then go to sleep. The whole family, I mean, everyone. So everyone would have to be on the same regimen.
Right.
Don't have a separate regimen for the father and mother and a separate regimen for the kids. Put everyone on the same regimen. And it's very important to do that because then you can control what the kids are doing. Because if not, control is very important in this. I don't know if that came across, the prison's all about control, but
Right.
having a regimen is in itself about control. And sticking to that regimen, controlling the environment rather than the environment controlling you is the key to success in this. So go to sleep, the whole family takes a little nap. When they wake up, it's time for breakfast, right? So you tweak the regimen just a little bit because of the kids. You're not going to wake up any kid at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, let's do some push-ups. That's not going to happen. You have a rebellion on your hand. So they have to eat first. So let them eat first. After they eat, exercise as a family. And we can come out of our houses. We don't have to be in, you can go to the backyard. You can go to the front yard. You can go to the garage. You're not confined to one room. Whichever area of the house is designated, there has to be a specific area for specific things at specific times. And that's how the brain is tricked. For example, after breakfast, like, all right, you guys, let's get ready. We're going to do some exercise. And purposely extend the exercise. Make it fun. I mean, uh, kids are not soldiers. They're not gonna do a 2 hour push-up routine. So you have to make it fun for them and engaging, but make it a little bit longer. And after the exercise, take turns to clean, wash up and everything. And after that, they're allowed to do their homework or Zoom with their classes or whatever situations is after the exercise and after the cleanup and shower period. So, well, before they know it, it's lunchtime. And I don't know nowadays, I don't know what aversion kids have to lunch these days. I think lunch is a bag of Cheetos. Kids, lunch is not a bag of Cheetos. Lunch is a meal for a square meal where you have proteins and carbs and veggies and everything. So my point in that is have them sit down as a family and eat lunch. It's very important. After lunch, I would give them a little bit of leisure. Their leisure doesn't come at 8 o'clock at night. Their leisure comes in the afternoon. Let them have their leisure. Let them go on Facebook or whatever they're permitted to do. But that time, they get maybe 2 or 3 hours of leisure, and after that, everyone comes back for dinner. And after dinner, purposely make the dinner a little bit longer. I would, like what I do by the time I come home for dinner, we make it like a family thing where I'm not just sitting on the couch, dinner ready. No, I'm actually helping out in the kitchen and making it like a family thing. Because it's a strange environment and we have to adapt to this environment.
Right.
So after dinner, that's when we can do something constructive as a family. And I strongly recommend doing constructive exercises, not physical exercises, but whether it's some kind of reading of the Quran, reading of the Hadith, reading of the stories of the Sahaba, or whatever, something constructive on the dini level. And I would do that after dinner, after Isha, and then before you know it, it's time to go to bed. And it's not like, Dad, I'm gonna stay up and play Call of Duty 4 till midnight. No, you're gonna go to bed. because you have to wake up early for Fajr, and I don't want to have to drag you out of bed for Fajr. I want you to wake up in Fajr. So have them go to bed at a normal time that they can wake up. So before you know it, if you stick to this regimen, before you know it, they're gonna be like, man, I didn't even get nothing done, Dad. Like, you always got tomorrow, man. You know, I'm like, and that's a good thing. That's what you want. You want them to have that sense of urgency that I spent the whole day and didn't get nothing done. In contrast to, man, we've been here all day. I'm tired. So that's how you model this regimen.
I really like that. So if there was one thing that you wanted the viewers to be left with, one thought, one piece of advice, what would that be?
Um, I'll just use my own life as an example. Um, إنما الأعمال بالنيات. This is this is the foundation of all actions, right? There is no action without the intention, and if the intention is correct, um, Allah, through His vast resources, can aid you in ways you can't even imagine. If your intention is to help people, Allah will move things in ways you can't even imagine to aid you. The most, I guess, if I was to say anything profound, the most profound thing I would say is that have the best intentions for people, have the intentions for khidmat. And when you have these intentions to help people and to do khidmat, especially of the Muslim, then man, Allah opens up doors. I mean, I'll tell you when I mean open up doors. I mentioned the story to you earlier. When I used to wake up in the morning at San Quentin, I would grab the bars, right? And San Quentin sits right on the bay. And I was in North Block, and North Block is where Death Row is at. So we were actually on the bay. We were surrounded by the water. And I would wake up in the morning and I would grab these bars and just look out into the bay. And there was these big windows in front of me, right, that you could see the bay. And I knew that at no point in my life would I ever be able to touch that water. I knew that, right? That's what my sentence was. I was never supposed to get out of prison. And I would see this every morning, and it was just like, man, who the hell put these damn windows over here, man? Somebody put a curtain on this window so I don't have to see this. It was very depressing. But my intention, after I got my education, my intention was to help the people inside deal with the consequences of this three strikes law. And that intention led to me founding a group, and that group is the reason why the law was changed. So this Allah literally and figuratively opened them doors. Those cell doors that never in my wildest imagination did I ever think they would open. He opened them. And I left that prison. And I remember when I left the prison, they were doing a documentary about me, right? So my family actually didn't come pick me up. It was a TV crew that came and picked me up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a TV crew. And my family's in Lodi, and they're taking me home to Lodi, and I'm sitting in the back of this van. I got like three cameras on me, and the producer, she's asking me all these questions, and apparently the people that put up the money to get the three strikes law changed, they gave them a lot of money to do a documentary about the three strikes law, and they're like, okay, you guys pick up this guy first, and I was the first one they picked up. So anyway, they're driving me home, and she's like, "Yeah, I want to film this as soon as you get out the van and you go see your mom and this, that, and the other, and that's gonna be so powerful." I'm like, "I'm not going home." Like, what do you mean? Well, the address to the masjid is, such and such on this street. I want you to take me there. And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, my mom is not the source of my freedom." I said, "Allah is the source of my freedom, and I'm going to His house and show my appreciation. That's where I'm going." And she's like, "I've interviewed a lot of lifers. You're the first guy that has said he's not going to see mom. I said, I'm gonna go see my mom, but first I'm gonna go to the source of my freedom. I recognize the source of my freedom, and I'm gonna show reverence to that source. That's where I'm going. So they took me to the masjid in Lodi, and obviously they couldn't go in. If anyone's ever been to the masjid in Lodi, you know why. So we'll just leave it at that. So they couldn't come in, and I went in and mashallah, made prayer and everything. But that was something that she was blown away by. But for me, it was like, no, it is what it is. I mean, Allah let me out. He opened the doors for me. So Allah opens the doors for you literally, and like He did in mine, literally opened the prison gates for me. And guys, I had no chance of ever coming home. I was supposed to spend the rest of my life in prison, but mashallah, I got out. You know?
SubhanAllah, like I said before, your story is such an inspirational story, and you should probably write a book or something because there's
That's
so
what
much
they told
to
me
it.
from a PhD, from my dissertation. The At the university, they were like, "You have to write a book as a dissertation topic." And I was like, I don't know. I chose a completely different dissertation topic, but they were pushing me too. They were like, you got to write a book about this. You got, I don't know. Inshallah, maybe one day when I'm not making falafels over here. So right now I don't have time. And guys, if you can recognize the background, I'm at falafel corner. So
I know you just got off of work.
I'm here all day. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for taking the time out. I know you're so busy, just getting a hold of you throughout the day. You've been like in and out with me. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you all for viewing our wellness webinar with Brother Sajad. Jazakallah khair. Please tune in tomorrow night again for our very first Ramadan Khatira at 9 p.m. Ramadan Mubarak to all of you guys and your families. Jazakallah khair, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm